My mindset going from Hong Kong and then traveling during COVID was to really connect with as many people
as
I
possible.
want.
Yeah,
And that's really
counterintuitive.
Yeah, because like you want to be safe at the same time, you also want to connect with
The
as many.
people.
Yeah, so
It contradicts your point of view.
Exactly. So I was very greedy in that standpoint that okay, I'm traveling. I want to connect with my family members.
This is Andrian.
And this is Ray. Welcome to the Talk Lab podcast.
Every 2 weeks, we'll invite a new guest and
In every session, we'll dig into their life, relationships, and perspectives.
one question at a time.
Let's
talk lab! Yay. Welcome to the Talk Lab podcast. This is Andrian.
This is Ray.
Okay, we're back because I cut him off like really suddenly just now, obviously. But then we're gonna continue talking about traveling because why I actually segmented to the second episode is because Ray had a really interesting experience on traveling, which I want him to talk a bit more about. And then it was passing the 25-minute mark, so I was like, okay, let's just do it in the second episode. So this one, I really want to talk about how you're meeting people in Singapore and Malaysia. Are there actually people restriction? That's my first question in Singapore and Malaysia, like dining out. But I think as of right now, Hong Kong is opening up, and I'm happy that we can actually dine out for like 8 people now. And then I think on 19th, right, we can eat till 2 or 12. And karaoke are gonna reopen again, and now a lot of things are opening. Like cinema is already reopened, so let's just do something later.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so thanks for cutting off the episode. Yeah, but this is like a new week, right, for people listening. So I think more context is like, I think if you want to know more about the nitty gritty on the procedures traveling during COVID, the quarantine stuff, quarantine hotel, when to do swab tests, what kind of research that you need to do, tune into the first part. But this part, like what Andrian rightly pointed out, is really more about the local regulation restrictions, but it's more on the social aspect.
Yeah.
And how to deal with that aspect. So to answer directly on, different places, what kind of
procedures,
SOPs or regulations, right? So, but I think it's also important to disclaimer this that is time sensitive. And during my time, which was mid-March to the whole of April, that was when I pretty much traveled. And you can imagine, that was a time where places are opening up.
Yep.
It was very, very tight in Hong Kong especially.
Yeah.
And Hong Kong was very, very tight until, I think, early May. Or late April?
Late April,
yeah. So it was very interesting for me because in March, everybody was like supposed to do the universal test, which thank God that they didn't go through, because if they did, it's just going to be like a logistical disaster, right? There's not enough resources to go door by door when even the frontliners in the hospitals already...
Thank God there's no lockdown like Shanghai. Like, I'm going to get demonetized for saying that, but Shanghai's condition is really, really...
And we all can resonate with that, right?
Yeah.
Like Hong Kong being like partial lockdown in some ways, but full lockdown is really no joke, I would say.
Seeing people getting traveled to Shanghai because we have clients who went to Shanghai, they quarantined for 21 days and suddenly they imposed lockdown in Shanghai and they imposed lockdown for a month and more. So the person couldn't even leave the hotel for 2 months.
Yeah,
You're just stuck there.
it's a disaster.
It's just...
And you can imagine, like, even for from a mental health perspective, from that guy, 2 months in the hotel, it's really, really tough. But you can imagine, what about families?
Yeah.
These are families, and they're very, very strict. Like, somehow we have friends that are in China, and they are quite active on Instagram, and they post real life updates on that. And the moment that they find out one case that is positive, the lockdown extends for another 7 days or 2
And the
weeks.
whole community.
Exactly. So it's just ridiculous because they're really pushing for a COVID zero thing, but you don't need a COVID zero in order to have a safe lifestyle. It's just becoming like,
It's a flu.
Yeah,
It became, now in Hong Kong, I think it became a flu when Hong Kong still have like 200, 300 cases. And in Korea, there's like 40,000 and they still live like normal life.
Yeah, so I think really embracing the pandemic and how different governments work, which I think this podcast is not really focused to talk about politics or religion and stuff. We're really more open, but since we're in a topic
we're still
of this,
entitled to our own opinion in a way
yeah.
that I think we respect their policy, but we still have our own take on each aspect
Yeah.
of life.
Yeah. So anyways, going back to
Regulations.
the regulations on
How many
you know,
people,
social and everything.
yeah.
Yeah. So you guys know the context on where I'm coming from and which time period the world was opening up, at least in this region, right? And yeah, so from let's start with Malaysia first. So give some even more context, because in Malaysia at that time they've already went through the period of like tight lockdown, and when I was there, everything was already open up. So I was really
How tight was the lockdown?
like I wouldn't say it's like Hong Kong tight and everything, but people generally don't go out as much because the cases was like 10,000 kind daily.
10,000 kind in the whole of Malaysia?
Yeah, but I mean, but still a lot.
Yeah,
right?
it's so big though.
I mean, yes, but it's a common thing to get COVID. Like when you start hearing friends of friends, colleagues, you know, getting, then you know like, okay, it's really
Spiraling.
a cluster within the community. Yeah. So that was the Chinese New Year period. It's just, Chinese New Year was not really a Chinese New Year in 2022 and 2 years before that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But when I went in March, it's just 1 month later, things were like, okay, let's do endemic. Things were opening up. So I was very blessed. Yeah, I didn't have to quarantine in a hotel or like do 7 days at home. They changed it to like, okay, 5 days home quarantine. And as long as you apply online, then you can do that. Yeah, but I think
If you don't apply online,
then you need to do hotel quarantine.
7
7
days.
Yeah, 7 days.
Okay.
If I remember, yeah. So, but I think now things have changed already. Yeah, whatever I'm saying now is not relevant. But back then when I did, that was the arrangement. And in Malaysia, pretty much open up. I don't think there's a number of people restriction, because when I was booking to meet friends and here and there,
Doesn't matter.
it's not. Yeah, it's not even a requirement. Like, yeah, it's just like, okay, nightclubs and all were still closed, but bars are still open. Bars are already open in Malaysia. So I'm like, yeah, just living the life, man, in Malaysia. Like, but you know, it's scary at the same time, because you know that, okay, you're traveling there, but at the same time you want to connect with family members, want to connect with friends, so you do it professionally. I think episode 1, part 1, we were talking about like the mindset of you really putting yourself out there to meet people. There's a risk, but you still have to take that calculated risk and make sure you follow the SOPs. And for me, might be a bit superstitious, but I always say it's backed by science. Like whenever I go out, I will sanitize myself. But I think the most important thing is like you only take out your mask when you eat or drink. And when you do, like throughout your whole period, when you step outside the door until you wash your hand, never touch your eyes or rub your nose or your face in general. And I think
you'll be safe.
And I think that sort of have helped me, at least mentally, to feel like, okay, as long as I don't touch my eyes, my nose, and everything, it's going to be a very, very low chance for the virus to be going into my respiratory tract. Because COVID, at the end of the day, is a respiratory kind of disease. So that made me feel better. But at the same time, like, there's so many people that got COVID, so I just felt very, very scared. Yeah.
So you need to just take your precaution. And as we mentioned, if you got COVID, sometimes it's fake. Because even if you lock down yourself, you might get COVID anyways. But you need to take precaution and not be like licking anything outside anyway.
Yeah, and try not to touch a lot of different random things, right?
Yeah.
Because it's probability game, right?
Yeah.
The more things you touch, the higher chance you get contracted, and the higher chance you get it in your system.
Yeah. So, but then Ray in Singapore
Oh yeah.
was still... So, because you said you really had your time, right? You really had your time.
I was also very blessed and lucky, but
Yeah.
yeah, I'll let you continue first.
Then Ray was having dinner or lunch with a friend, and then suddenly Ray got like a notification, or the friend told you, "Oh, I actually got COVID, so you better get tested. You're really a close contact." Then what would actually happen, and what do you do to prevent you becoming the super spreader?
I think it's very hard for me to prevent myself to be a super spreader, because just to give some idea like on COVID, right? So I think I'm sort of entitled to share, you know, how long COVID typically will get into your system. So on the moment that person is positive, it takes 3 days and 5 days. And you know that you're very safe if on day 5 of him telling you that he is positive and you are still negative, that you're 100% safe. Yeah. So it takes actually 5 days. If you really want to not be a super spreader, there's a responsibility for you to quarantine yourself for 5 days before you meet others. Just to make it 100% sure that you're not going to spread.
Yeah.
Because it takes time for COVID to be in your system and for you to get the symptoms. Yeah. So with that in mind, I think I was irresponsible in that side, but I was not legally wrong. Because in Singapore, like there's a lot of changes, right? And Singapore was really modern, or they really embraced COVID as an endemic kind of thing. They say, okay, we shouldn't let COVID stop the way that you live life, but we need to be bounded by the restrictions and respect everyone. So actually in Singapore, I'm very sure that the number of cases is definitely more than in Malaysia, because the government regulation is like, as long as you close contact with someone, but if you do the ART, which is the antigen rapid test, if you do it in the morning and it's still negative, you're okay to meet people. Yeah. And it's not even a requirement for you to test every day, in Singapore. But me, I don't want, my mindset going from Hong Kong and then traveling during COVID was to really connect with as many people as
possible, yeah.
And that's really
counterintuitive.
Yeah, because you want to be safe at the same time, you also want to connect with as
people.
many. Yeah, so
it contradicts your point of view.
Exactly. So I was very greedy in that standpoint that, okay, I'm traveling, I want to connect with my family members, but at the same time, I want to make sure that I don't get COVID. Yeah, so it's very in my mind, it's okay, every day there's a chance to do. Yeah, but I think how I went about it is saying okay, there's always a chance anyway. You just take the extra precautions. But if you do get it, you get it. And if you don't, life goes on. Let's keep rolling. But what I did was every time in Singapore, every day, I test myself. I do a test. And I make sure that I'm negative first.
Before you go out.
So I'll always text the person, send them oh, by the way, I'm negative. It's just me protecting you. Because I'm really meeting 3 different people. At least, or 3 different groups a day. Breakfast meeting, lunch meeting, happy hour, dinners. Yeah, Singapore is really open up, because when I went in 1st of April, basically my high school friends were celebrating, 10 people gathering, because that's the limit in Singapore on 1st of April. So 2nd April, I started meeting my high school friend, and that's 10 people at once. I'm oh shit, it's gonna be high risk, right? So yeah, it turned out well and everything. And I think just to give some context to people on how many people that I met, I basically counted, because I took Scoot, right, to fly, and there's no TV. So basically I had a lot of time to think and reflect. And one of the things that I did was counting how many people I met throughout my time in Malaysia and Singapore before, entering the 7 days quarantine in Hong Kong. And it's around 60 people.
You meet 60 people?
60 people. That's quite a lot of people. And I'm very, very blessed that everything turned out well, smooth, and still COVID negative. So I think that's something that I'm really, really blessed and happy about. It's not something I should brag about, but
you just feel blessed.
Yeah, very grateful. So everything worked out well for me.
So your pointer, as you've written here, is you really made most of your trip out of your 5 weeks of leave, basically.
Yeah.
You meet everyone, and then you were hanging out with friends. Did you feel rejuvenated when you come back to Hong Kong then?
Yeah, of course.
Right?
So basically, it was not 5 weeks of leave. So my leave was 2.5 weeks. And then on my 3rd week in Singapore, it was really the day I was onboarding. It's just that I was shuffling and juggling. Might as well meet with the people that have helped me in Hong Kong. Yeah. That was supporting me off Singapore, because I have some friends, work friends, and also high school friends. Yeah, so it was really, really a great experience just to reconnect with old friends, and also, work colleagues that have been supporting me during COVID and pre-COVID. And I have never met them in real life.
In person.
Yeah.
So I think it's really good that we got some takeaways from traveling. Hopefully we can travel soon. Hopefully it will be 5 days of home quarantine. Then we can actually begin traveling again.
Yeah.
For Hong Kong people,
yeah.
Obviously.
That'll
for
be
myself.
nice.
Because I don't have enough holidays, enough leaves to do all these. And hopefully some companies are more flexible to do hybrid. But
you can leave your job and plan your next move.
Wow. As Ray may be hiring me, obviously.
I mean, that's an option, right? I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of people have also considered okay, my job is not that great and stuff. Why don't I take time off and then find another role, and then they plan, like me, right? This. But yeah, gotta think wisely whether before you leave your job is a big decision. don't leave a job because you just want to travel. That's
really
dumb.
ridiculous.
That's really dumb. The ROI is not there,
Yeah.
and it will affect your thing.
But you need to think of what's the best job for you, what's the best role for you to switch. And I think Ray is really happy about switching to Databricks. So
I think we can cover that on the
next episode.
Because I think just to give some, I'm not sure whether we'll do an episode when, but there's a lot of things and thought that I put into and ask different people for advice before actually making the switch. And I think it will really be beneficial, if not relevant within the same industry, but the same thought process, the same framework can be applied to any industry. Yeah. So I think we can cover that in a different episode. Yeah.
Seems like Ray put a lot of thought into.
Yeah, you were part of the thought process, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
You know
how he actually think of the switching a job, and then now it seems like he actually rejuvenated and he seems a lot happier. And I think it's a really good process, and it's good to see that Ray is back and is his 120%. But then we're not going to talk about that. So stay tuned if we ever going to do that episode soon. But then one thing is actually also in the process, right?
Yeah.
And that's really the last part of this episode is Malai Jai now really congratulate Ray, even though followers doesn't mean anything like overall, but then it also Ray actually reached 12K of followers on Malai Jai. What it means is his hard work actually paid off, because originally he thought of just using it as his workout journal to record himself, but afterwards it blew up. Do you have any tips for going viral?
I mean, it's not tips or anything, but I think I would say it's an interesting episode, but I think we can cover it as a topic, a quick topic now, and just to give more context and personal touch to our audience that have been listening to us. So I think those that have known me personally would already know, or you might be hearing this podcast because you've been hearing it from Malai Zai. So Malai Zai, like what Andrian have introduced, is really a fitness journal that I've created like more than 2.5 years ago. If I remember, it's like 2019, August, September kind of time. That was when Malai Zai was born. And back then it was not Malai Zai Fitness, it was Malai Zai Ray. And then because of SEO reasons, I watch a lot of YouTube, and they say, you should put your handle to be identified with your niche. And I was like, okay, yeah, fitness journal, my name is not important, let's do fitness. Yeah, so I think that was the mindset that I created this fitness journal. It's not really to grow, and like, of course that's like really the upside, but I was really more thinking like, I already work out a few times a week, I'm consistent at that, let's make me accountable to continue working out. And that's why Malai Zai was born as a fitness journal. And in return, I was like, okay, if I'm already gonna document all this fitness journal, why don't I also inspire and create a positive impact from that standpoint? So that's the whole idea behind Malai Zai. And I've been consistent with my workouts and also with posting content every now and then. And I think, so interesting point on like how I got viral. I wouldn't say like super viral, but for my perspective, I'm like super mind blown. It's crazy. So I think just to give context, right, on why I consider that as viral. So it took like 2.5 years before I can achieve that 1K following. But at the end of the day, like followers, number of counts, it doesn't matter. Yeah. Because like when I was in Malaysia, I met people that I connected via Malai Zai, and I felt like, wow, this is so powerful. Social media is powerful. You can meet and actually build communities from it, and the number of followers doesn't matter, as long as you can relate. So, but anyway, that's just to give some context. How I got from 0 to 1,000, it took 2.5 years.
Yeah.
But the moment when I went to Singapore and I started tagging like the Jewel, and I think that one of the posts got viral. So I was in Jewel Crown, is it called? No, Jewel Changi. Yeah. So basically the waterfall
in the airport, right?
Yeah. And I post and I tag the location, and that post went viral. Viral to the point that you know when you click into the location tag, you're like the top 9 photos.
Wow.
And basically I was looking at my phone, like it was not buzzing because I never had notifications, but I could see like the number of likes was crazy. It's the first time I went like more than 1,000 likes in a photo for an account with less than, like back then, like less than 1,000 following. That's a lot, man. On average it's like 100, 150. That's the typical range that I'll have. Yeah, so I'm like, wow, okay, it just blew up. So I was like, oh, okay, cool. And then basically everything that you stay consistent and stuff. I just been posting different posts and everything, and it just continue. It snowball. So I think like it just tapped into the algorithm of Instagram. And
you're also right on something, is Reels, right? Because Instagram is pushing Reels out, and you're pushing good content on Reels, and you got how many views that you get for one video?
Yeah, so I think I'll touch the Reels part.
Yeah.
But just like, it blew up one post, and then when you're consistent, it just like the inertia just kept going up, and it just kept pushing to wider audience. So I'm like, wow, the trip changing roles and stuff, and now I don't know whether it's like the law of attraction or what, but the idea is like you basically have to put in the work for 2.5 years. And sometimes I would say why I consider myself grateful and blessed is because most people they still, after doing 5 years, sometimes you never know when you're gonna blow up.
Yeah. Or never blow up.
Exactly. So I thought like, okay, it was just my fitness journal. I'm having fun with it. I'm like meeting new people online, connecting with different people during my home quarantine here and there. And yeah, I just had my mini community. I was like happy running that on the side. And then in Singapore, it just like got pushed, and then boom, it just went viral. And yeah, touching on the real side, right? Yeah, because home quarantine, I think like Hong Kong was opening up, some places are locked down. Yeah, you do this kind of reels. Workout videos in the reels. So I was like doing it in the hotel quarantine kind of workout. And yeah, it's just really leveraging what Instagram was really pushing to at the same time of me being part of the algorithm. And it just went viral. Like there's like one video that got like more than 300k views now.
Wow.
For like, now it's like a 10k account. Yeah, so just to give some context how crazy and viral it is, like some days it will be 1,000 followers a day. And that's for me unheard of, man.
It's basically doubling for you originally.
So I basically 10x my number of followers in this span of 5 weeks.
I should have done the Malajai coin.
Yeah. So that's just some context on, where I'm at the social media journey, and how I'm taking in all this. Like I'm taking it as very, I'm very humble, very grateful for what I have, but it doesn't change me as a person. But it does make me...
Changed him already. Made him...
Yeah,
kidding.
Yeah. But I mean, like, I whether it affects you on something, I think it does in some way. Like, at least your online presence has some more credibility, I would say. But I hope to still stay rooted. Yeah. Because that's...
But hopefully, your Malaysia channel can help us invite guests easier because your credibility...
Yeah, that definitely helps.
Right?
So I've been... You know how I'm always doing the BD to get the guests to talk to different people, right?
Yeah.
So now with Malai Thai, I think it's a lot easier, man. Like people will just like notice, like, oh, you already have 10k. So I think using that and capitalizing on that, I think that's good, right?
Yeah.
Because we can get more.
We can do viral by viral, something like that.
Yeah.
Leverage on what you're existing.
Exactly. So I think that's gonna be interesting for Talk Lah, growing our audience, because it's all about maximizing the positive impact to young adults especially. Yeah.
So people around our age group, and hopefully we can grow that into the Malaysia direction as well. But it's very interesting that one thing I want to point out is Ray's channel actually got 91% of what engagement, Ray?
Yeah, so I think this was not surprising at all, to be honest, because I think when I started the account, there was a trend that I thought like starting a fitness channel, putting a decent looking person on screen and decently okay body out there, you thought like, oh, you inspire a lot of girls and get connected with a lot of girls followers. Not true at all. Not true. So the opposite actually happened, and yeah, just an interesting learning process that you cannot choose who your niche is. I mean, who your followers are. But what you can do is like choose what kind of content to push out.
Yeah.
And then based on people's liking and stuff, they will choose whether they want to follow you. And somehow the LGBTQ community was really supporting and rooting for Malai Thai.
Yeah.
Even in the 2.5 years, it was already like brewing a lot of different engagements from there. Not physically, of course, but like they were very supportive on that. So when the algorithm took off in Singapore, it was mainly, I could feel it was really mainly the LGBTQ. And it was really, really strong and powerful that snowballed into the thing. So it was very interesting to know, like, I still kept my niche to be more about fitness, mindset, food, yeah. But now I think like with 10K kind of following, I don't have to be super focused, but I was still focused mainly about my workout, positive mindset.
It's still part of you.
It's the same thing, yeah.
Yeah, because you started because of that reason and you continue that direction. So I think hopefully he can also leverage on some KOL sponsor. If what Gymshark is listening, My Protein, here's your guy.
I think put a lot of thought into what kind of direction. I think right now like I'm not really keen to monetize it. I'm okay to spread the word on brands that I really, really like and resonate with.
Yeah.
But in terms of really monetizing it and everything, I think it's a bit, it's not an urgent thing. So I really want to focus more on building a community.
The brand,
building a community.
Yep.
And having meetups in Hong Kong, in Singapore and Malaysia. That'll be so cool. Just meeting like-minded people that like fitness or really like my lifestyle. Yeah, but I think it's good. Yeah, connect with people that do yoga and people that do focus on calisthenics. People that like beer but work out. It's just so diverse, so interesting. So I think the main focus now for me is really building the community and see where that takes the podcast, because that's like a network effect spillover.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be an exciting journey ahead. Yeah.
So let's see where everything takes us in the future. And that's probably a wrap for our episode. Do you have anything to add?
No, I think that's good. I just wanted to say thank you so much, Andrian, for being part of the journey. We've been consistent for almost 1.5 years now. It's been crazy. Like every week, I wouldn't say every week we do, but most of the weeks we do publish an episode, and we stay true to that to come up with one episode weekly. And we appreciate our viewers a lot too, because taking half an hour, 40 minutes sometimes of your time to listen to us talking and listen to the guest perspective, even though the topics are very random, but I think your commitment to support us, give us feedback, share our stuff, even though it's a small number of people, I think we truly appreciate our early followers, early fans, and hopefully we can still continue to do this forever. Because I think that's the foundation of building communities and building larger impact to people. So just want to say, just grateful for the whole journey. And I think the last 4 or 5 weeks have really crystallized, at least my fulfillment and energy levels to what I want to do. Yeah.
So this will be a wrap. If you like us, subscribe us on YouTube, follow us on Instagram, DM us if you have any comments. And that's it. Thank you very much. See you. Bye.